Hello and welcome to the very first Pokemon Zoology podcast, or PZP. It sounds like PCP. If you don't know who I am, my name is Joshua Dunlop. I am a freelance concept artist living in London from the UK, if you hadn't already guessed by my accent. Basically, I created a series called Pokemon Zoology, where I take the original Pokemon, first 150, and I translate them into a realistic looking interpretation using 3D and digital painting. First of all, I have to apologise for the quality of this because my good mic broke recently, so I'm using a kind of a cheap tinny one, so I do apologise for that. And it's a shame because this is the first podcast, and it's for you guys, my patrons, but then also, I'm going to make this one live so people can see what they're getting into, what the podcast involves. So basically what I'm going to talk about today is, first of all, I'm just going to kind of give you a sum up about who I am and how I even got into this, because not everyone knows that. I have wonderful chats with people at Comic-Con and whatnot, but, it's not that often I get to kind of talk to you guys one-on-one, and, it's a real pleasure. So I'll talk about me, because that's the fun bit. Then I'll talk about what pictures I created this month, and my inspirations and reference and whatnot, so you guys get a little bit of a behind-the-scenes kind of peek at how my mind works, I guess. And then I'll finish up with a few Q&A questions. Now, going forward, what I'd like to do is have it so that the Patrons will submit questions and we'll go from there. But because this is the first time I put up a Q&A on my Instagram, and I've taken a few questions from there and some other places on my social media, they're just going to be some quick fire questions, going forward with the other podcasts, obviously I'll be answering a lot more questions and whatnot, but this is just kind of like a teaser or an opening to it, I hope you guys like it. So let's crack on. Basically, who am I? As I said, my name is Joshua Dunlop. I am a freelance concept artist. If you don't know what a concept artist is, basically I design a variety of things for film, TV, games, advertisements, lots of bits and pieces, but my speciality is creature design. Basically, where did my story start? Well, it started about 3 years ago, maybe a little bit over that now. And I had just graduated from my master's in concept art. Funny enough, not many people know this, but I actually started out studying acting, which was, wonderful, and I got to work on a variety of projects and whatnot after I graduated. But it came to a point in my life where I wanted a change, and I needed a solid year of just focusing and studying on my work and improving my artwork, because that was the direction I realised I wanted to go in. So basically I graduated my master's, and then I realised that life was really, really hard. And it is, but I realised that I had a lot more things that I needed to focus on, and I was not going to just suddenly fall into a job like, you think you might do after you do a master's. So, basically what I did was, one of my friends suggested to me, he says, why don't you get into some 3D work? And I was like, I've never really thought about doing that. And he was just like, honestly, I think it'll really suit you should give it a go. So I did, and I chose probably the most difficult 3D program out there, which is Zbrush. Or Zbrush, as some people say. And, whoever created the UI for that, thank you. But, I basically spent about 3 months solid, just going through tutorials and practicing and kind of getting to grips with the program itself. And then after that, I decided I wanted to kind of put my skills, my newfound skills, into a new project. And even though I was a big fan of Pokemon when I was a kid, loved it, I hadn't really thought about it for a while at that point. But Pokemon Go was really big, and everyone was flicking at their phones and walking into traffic. So I thought, hey, well, why not turn some, Pokemon into realistic looking creatures? That might be fun. So I did Bulbasaur first, and I was very, very pleased with the outcome when I finished it. And then I decided to do the other two. I originally put them on my Facebook, and one of my friends said to me, mate, you need to get this on Imgur. To be honest, I have no idea. I don't use it. I don't know how to pronounce it. But I thought, well, there's no harm in that. So I stuck them on to Imgur, and didn't think anything of it after that. I just kind of left it. And then the next morning, my friend rang me up at 7 a.m. and was just like, it's got 400,000 views. I was like, what? And I went on there, and sure enough, the upticks or whatever it has on that site were skyrocketing, and things were being shared all over the world. Suddenly I started getting tagged by my friends, saying, this website shared you, this person shared you, and and I ended up went viral, and it was wonderful. And I did lots of interviews, and I got my work shared all over the world. It was really, really wonderful. And the main thing that everyone said was, they came back and said, just do more. I was like, okay. And it's not an easy thing to make that choice, because it's a huge project. Even with just doing the 150, it's a big project. But I thought, having something, this is obviously popular and people were really enjoying it, and it seemed like it would be a shame just to stop. And also it became a really good way for me to practice new things and get me out of my comfort zone, because each Pokemon is very different and brings a new thing to a table. One will be a plant, one will be a reptile, one will be covered in fur, one will be covered in feathers, which I absolutely hate. And for everyone who sees my Pokemon pictures with feathers, I apologise, I did my best. Feathers are a freaking nightmare in 3D, but that's what it is. And I've done it ever since, and people seem to really love it. And I recently clocked over 200,000 followers on Instagram, which is just insane, But it truly has been absolutely fantastic, and I have the best fans. I really do, and I've had I'm very, very lucky, and I do my best to answer people's questions and talk to people and whatnot, because they're the ones that are making this happen. They're the ones that support me and help me drive, and with the Patreons, absolutely insane. Thank you so much. As cringy as it sounds, the more funding I get, the more time I can spend on it, and I know that sounds like a bid to get people to spend more, but really it is that simple. I have to pay my bills, and the more freelance work that I take on, and I do have to take on stuff, recently I switched over to monthly payments instead of pay per creation, and I think this is definitely a better way forward. I think this is how I want to continue forward, but it is, it's a bit of a knock financially. But that means I've had to take on more freelance work, and it's just how it is. Which is why I've only actually been able to create one picture, 3 Pokemon, but one picture this month, which actually moves me perfectly into the next section, which is talking about the picture I created this month. The picture I created this month was actually the celebration image for my 200,000 followers. Every big milestone I try and do a new fun picture that's kind of out of the norm and something extra special for you guys. And this time I decided to do the 3 starters. Now, obviously, right back at the beginning, I'd done the starters, and I think they've held up pretty well. But I can look at them now and see some minor flaws and whatnot, and also just kind of design elements that maybe I wouldn't have done now than I did then, because it wasn't planned to be anything or for anything then. It was just like a bit of fun and like playing with a program. So I decided to give them an updated look, still keep them in the realm of what I did from the originals. I want them to fit into the series nicely, but yeah, I kind of did them all from scratch, essentially. I did take some elements of the models from the original models. Like, to be honest, I lost a lot of them through things breaking, things being deleted by accident. Like, yeah, real pain. But luckily with both the Squirtle and Bulbasaur, I had a few rough models left over, so I was able to kind of use them as a starting point. So first of all, I did Squirtle, if I remember rightly. I basically took the head and the shell and the tail as well, from the original model. But I re-sculpted the legs and the arms and whatnot, because, you know, the original picture is underwater. So I kind of wanted it to look like it was swimming a bit, whereas this time it's standing up. So yeah, I remodeled that, and I used a lot of custom textures that I'd made, and some that I downloaded from different areas to sculpt this. But I wanted him to look not only cute, but I wanted him to look like he was actually a turtle, whereas like I've seen other depictions of it where it doesn't have that look. It kind of almost looks like a mammal. So I wanted him to look like a sea turtle, so I got a lot of reference from that, and I redid those. But I was really happy with how he turned out. I still think he looks quite cute compared to, you know, it's a weird thing with reptiles and other creatures like that. Some people can look at them and go, that's adorable, and then other people can look at them and go, that's something out of my nightmares. Which is fair, you know, art is subjective and whatnot, and especially with this picture, I've put it out and some people say they think they're adorable, some people think they're terrifying. But that's absolutely fine, and I don't think there's any wrong answers in that. Obviously it's not that nice when people just look at it and go, that's terrible, or I hate that, or something like that. It just, you know, people are entitled to their opinion and stuff, but I do ask people, like, you know, if you are going to comment on my pictures and you're going to say something about them, like, I just appreciate if it was constructive. You know, I'm not against negative comments at all. Actually, I think if they're thought out or there's a reason why that they're saying it, then, like, you know, I can learn from it, and I think that's a great thing. So, but then, you know, when people just kind of say, oh, this is crap, or even worse, then it's just kind of rude, to be honest, because I'm not learning anything from that. You're just making me feel bad. Yeah, I always ask people if they can be constructive. It's something like, oh, the light doesn't work there, or this bit like doesn't feel like it's set in the scene, or something along those lines, then, you know, I'm more than happy to listen and try and improve it, and I have in the past. You know, I've done these pictures and I have gone back and improved them. I've listened to you guys, and I think that's important. I think it is important. I know that there's this kind of mentality out there of kind of like, it's my art, so I won't listen to anyone. But you know, that's not necessarily a way to improve. Obviously, there's different design choices and whatnot, but I personally will try and listen to people. If I'll be honest, if I disagree, if I'm really happy with the picture, I'm not going to change it. You know, that's just how it is. And I genuinely am not going to go back to old pictures as well. I've had quite a few people go like, hey, can you redo this one? And I was like, no, that's kind of rude. Like, I'm happy with it. So, anyway, getting back to my point. Yeah, so I did Squirtle. I was really happy with how that one came out. Then I did Bulbasaur, and I had, as I said, I had some rough old models of that one. But really, the head was the only thing that and the bulb, the head and the bulb, I kind of kept. I had to redo the entire body. I felt like its stance didn't quite work. It just wasn't kind of, I don't know how to describe it. Its anatomy just felt a bit off. And I think I actually did a lot of tweaking in post, in Photoshop when it came to it. So I thought, well, you know what, I'm going to go back and I'm going to actually do this properly. So I remodeled it all and used a lot of alphas and whatnot to get the really nice textures in there. And I was really happy with how Bulbasaur turned out, you know. because it feels updated and fresh and new. It also feels like younger, which is something that I wanted for all three of these, actually. The other ones look like they're kind of on the verge of evolving into their next stage. And I think maybe going forward, that's kind of what I'll say those pictures are. I'll just say that they're older versions of the starters. Whereas these ones I really wanted to look like young, cute babies that are about to be handed over to their new mummy and daddy trainers. Yeah, so I was really happy with that. And I went back into with the bulb and did a lot more detailed textures to kind of give it more of a realistic leaf feel. I wanted the leaves particularly to feel kind of like a rubber plant or something along those lines, so that they have these thick leaves, kind of a rubbery look. So anyone saying that was actually on purpose, I wanted it to kind of look like a succulent rather than like kind of like a flower bulb, if that makes any sense. And finally, I did Charmander, and Charmander is an entirely new sculpt from scratch. I couldn't find the old Charmander model, and I think, to be honest, even if I did, I probably would have done this anyway. I like how this turned out. I like the original model, I do, but it was more sleek, and it had a far more theropod feel to it, which I know some people don't like, and I get that, and it's fine because the original Charmander is kind of short and squat and whatnot. But for me, I always feel like I will change some of the anatomy or some of the look from the original Pokemon to make it physically look like it could work, like as if it could run around, because Charmander's legs are way too short. They're kind of like weird little squat flippers, and he just wouldn't be able to walk. And some people are probably screaming at it right now, going like, well, what about Detective Pikachu? I think it looked awkward. It doesn't look like something that could survive in the wild. And don't get me wrong, I think that they did a fantastic job on the film, and I think that when they were designing, I completely understood the design route that they went, because with something as beloved as Pokemon, you have to go with the wider audience. You have to go with what people expect and what people want to see and stuff, and that is kind of like a highly rendered cartoon, if that makes sense. It's the same thing that happened with Sonic, and I think it was the right move for them to reevaluate it and go down the more cartoony route, because that's what people want, or what they remember and what they expect. That's their nostalgia, and don't get me wrong, like if I ever got round to being able to do something, designing a Pokemon film or something along those lines that was entirely separate to Detective Pikachu, maybe for an older audience, then maybe I would go for like a slightly darker look and maybe slightly more realistic look. But I completely understand why they did what they did in Detective Pikachu. So as I said, Charmander was a completely new sculpt, and I'm really happy with it. I know a few people may not, but I'm really happy with it. I think it's a lot shorter and squatter, which is more in keeping with Charmander, but it feels like it could be more like a baby dragon than it could be like a dinosaur, like a velociraptor or something like that, which is kind of what it leaned towards in my original picture. I know there was a lot of people who messaged me saying like, no, but Charmander's a salamander, and it's like, well, he's not. Yeah, he does have Mander in his name, like Salamander, Charmander. I get it, but if you look at it, it is not a salamander. A salamander is like a newt, and it doesn't have any of those features whatsoever. It is more like a dinosaur / dragon than anything else, and that's the route I'm going to go down when I design my creatures. Like, I go by what it looks like rather than what it says. And I mean, like, I've had the same thing with Pikachu. People have said like, oh no, but Pikachu looks like a rabbit in yours, it should be a mouse. I'm like, but first of all, when I actually created Pikachu, I used a Pika and a Dormouse as a base reference. But the only element that I used from a rabbit was actually its ears, because rodents don't have long ears. The closest that you've got is a jerboa, and its ears are way too big. So so I went for rabbit. So basically, that's what I did. And going forward with the podcast, I will talk more in depth about where I've got my reference from, and talk about the animals that I've used and the anatomy that I used and all this kinds of stuff. So I will go a lot more in depth in that in future. So obviously I don't want to make this too long, so I'm going to move on to Q&A. And I've picked 5 questions. These are some of the ones that come up the most, and then also one that's just kind of a little bit more out there, something that's a little different. So first question is, what's your favourite Pokemon? I get this asked all the time, and it makes sense. I understand why people want to know, but my favourite Pokemon is actually Raichu. You know, I have people going like, "Well, not Pikachu. Why not Pikachu?" It's like, well, one, I think Raichu's design is better. You know, I'm probably getting a lot of boos right now, but I like it. I think it's really good, especially the more modern one, the kind of less chubby one. I really like, and it's also kind of always in Pikachu's shadow, and I kind of always feel bad for it in a weird way. So yeah, I really like it, and literally every game that I've played, I've always had a Raichu. So yeah, that's my favourite Pokemon. And what was your favourite Pokemon to make? Every picture has brought its own unique, highs and lows, but I have to say my favourite has to be my first Bulbasaur, and that really comes down to the fact that, it was the first one that I realised that I could do this, and not only do it, but kind of do it well, without sounding arrogant, but well enough that people like it, and I was really proud of myself, and, and it's okay to be proud of yourself, and it's inspired me to go on to do more and learn more and fuel me, because I think at that time I was a bit low. I'm not going to lie, I think I was a bit kind of worried about if I'd made the right choice and if I was going in the right direction. And then that kind of boosted my morale and pushed me in the right direction. And, the rest is history. If I'd never created that, I wouldn't be here talking to you right now. So, next question is, how do you deal with art blocks? This is something that I think a lot of artists really struggle with, and I'm exactly the same. I'll have days where it's hard to even pick up a pen, There is no clear solution to art blocks. It is very much on each person's thing. For me, I find that I look for things that inspire me, or listen to music that inspires me. I listen to a lot of instrumental music that really helps, because especially from soundtracks for movies, because that music is designed to tell a story and create emotion and atmosphere and whatnot. So I'll listen to those and I'll allow my mind to run, and I won't specifically be thinking only think about Pokemon, because that's what you're stuck on, you got to do this next Pokemon. No. I'll just let my mind run and come up with random ideas and scenes based around the music, and once in a while an image will pop into my head and I'll go, yes, that's what I need to do, I'm going to do that next, or something that will influence something I want to do. So yeah, I think that's a really good one. One is get out of the house. I know it sounds like a bit weird and simple, but it is. It's just as a freelance artist, I'm indoors all the time. I'm just sat at my computer non-stop, and sometimes I just have to tell myself stick your coat on and go for a long walk. And luckily I live near the River Thames, so I go down and stroll down by the river, and I find that helps me clear my head, because I'm just kind of out of view of all the things that kind of were stressing me out and whatnot, and it also allows me to kind of think a bit more clearly. I think, and this is going to sound strange as well, but having a good diet can really help. I know you're probably going but how on earth did that help me with art block? And the thing is if your body isn't feeling great about itself, and you might not even be aware of it, that has knock-on effects on your psyche and can block artistic flows and all sorts. But if you're eating and I'm not saying eat nothing but kale, I just mean eat a bit healthier, don't drink as much and all this kind of stuff. Or if you're going to work, if you have a time that you want to work and you want to use that as a time to relax, don't do it while you're hungover or something along those lines. It's good to have a good clear head and a good clear body. It allows you to, you just for everything to connect inside you. To anyway, it helps me anyway. And read books, watch films, this kind of stuff that inspires you. Hold things that inspire you as well. Like, even if you've seen it before, go back to it, because sometimes you will spot things that you missed, and then that will spark something in your imagination, and it just snowballs. But also, don't allow yourself to get depressed and angry at yourself for not doing work, because generally there's a reason why you're not doing it. And I think if you try and force it, it's a bit like when you're trying to, if you know you've got to get up early in the morning and you lay in bed and you're like, go to sleep, you're not going to go to sleep. It's just going to perpetuate it. And the best thing to do is either switch your mind off and think about something else, or to even get up and go and have a cup of tea or something. But it's the same kind of thing as that. If you're trying to force yourself and tell yourself, like, come on, you gotta do this. Why aren't you doing this? It's not going to help, and you're not going to create the environment that you need, or the kind of mentality that you need. Right, well, I'll move on to the final question here. If you could have had the same level of success that you've had with the Pokemon, but with something else, what would it be? I think that's a really interesting question. It's difficult to say, but I think one of the main things that I would say is something that is fully my own IP. I think Pokemon have been absolutely wonderful to allow me to have continued the way that I've been going, and that they haven't really been upset about it. But I always know that there is a ceiling to this. There's only so much that I can make, and only so much I can do without working directly with Pokemon, or just not going anywhere. So what I would like to have created is something that is fully my own IP, something that I have creative control over, something that people are inspired by. I look at things like the Harry Potter series, and I'm incredibly inspired by J.K. Rowling and everything that she's done, because she created entire worlds and an entire universe that has influenced so many all over the world. And to create something like that would be absolutely amazing. And I want to, and I have ideas, and I have plans, and I have things in motion and whatnot to try and make those things happen. And I think having such amazing fans is absolutely incredible. And hopefully, as I start to bleed out some more of my own work, that even if it's only like 10% of them that like it, that's still a lot of people. So yeah, hopefully that dream will come, and that Pokemon will always be there, and I'll probably continue it in some capacity for a while. But I eventually want to start moving into my own stuff, and hopefully I can make that happen soon. But yeah, so guys, thank you so much for listening. To my Patreon supporters, you are all incredible. Thank you so much for your support, your love, and know that it's very much reciprocated. And to anyone who's listening to this first podcast as a taster for what is coming up, please check out my Patreon. I think there's loads of really cool rewards, lots of behind the scenes stuff that I'm going to be doing. More of these podcasts, I'll go into more in depth about lots of different things. I've got a Discord server now that I've set up, so please go and check that out if you're a Patreon supporter. And also, if you want to sign up, you can go on there. I'll be taking questions for the podcast through my Discord, hopefully from now on, as long as people go on there and actually post questions. I'll also be happy just to chat to people. It's just nice to kind of create this community. So I'll be doing that. So if you like the project and you want to help me out, and you want to see the project flourish and go on to do bigger and better things, check out my Patreon, or go to my Etsy store, and you can buy some prints there and whatnot. But every little helps, really does. Thank you all so much for listening again, and I hope you have very happy holidays. Much love.